Well, hello, friends and followers. Welcome to the weekend. It's finally Saturday. It's been kind of a long, busy week for me at work. We've been a little short-handed, so I didn't get a whole lot of work done in the shop because after work I've had to mow my weeds. I've had to do some grocery shopping. Started some laundry last night. I am working on the Dart, slowly but surely getting some things done. You can see it's actually in primer. Got a few things to touch up on that and then shoot some more primer on it. But the reason I'm here today, there's been a couple of community questions recently posted by two separate Jasons. Jason Hanscom over at Blue Ox Model Shop and Jason Klein from KRD, Klein Race Design. Yeah. Whew. Like I said, long week. Anyway, so the first question from Jason Hanscom over at Blue Ox Model Shop, this came up in one of their, I think it was during one of their Sunday afternoon build sessions with another modeler who actually mentioned it. And the question is simply, is it okay to plateau in your hobby, in your modeling? And I think everybody who's answered this up to this point kind of all agrees that yes, it is okay to plateau, and that plateau is really left up to each individual modeler. What are your goals? Have you reached a level that you want to be at, that you're comfortable with, don't really have any desire to progress beyond that? I mean, if that's true for you, then that's cool. I don't think I'm there yet. I know I'm not to the level I really want to be at. I've seen a lot of great work from other modelers, and mine pales in comparison. I've definitely improved. In fact, I've even improved probably in the last year and a half since right before I started this channel. I've been a off and on plastic modeler since I was a kid. I did RC modeling for a long time. I've done a little bit of everything, but I've really only gotten more serious with my plastic modeling in, I'd say, the last year and a half to 2 years. And I can see improvement. Definitely improvement from where I was as a kid, for sure. And some of that is due to the availability of some of the better tools that we have available to us now. When I was a kid, I didn't have an airbrush. I've had an airbrush now for 20 years, and I've gotten better at using it. I have a dedicated workspace. I'm not at my mom's kitchen table anymore. So, those things help. But I've still got a long way to go based on where I would like to be. I've done okay at some shows. I'm not getting a top 10 best in show, but hey, that's my goal. Someday I'll get to that level. So yeah, I think that's up to each individual modeler. Some people like doing straight out of the box with no additional details. That's fine. I think probably for me right now, I'm a box stock plus a little extra. I've done just a little bit of scratch building. Like in my diorama, I built the trailer that the car sits on. I built the barn that it's in. So scratch building isn't really new to me, but I'm not getting as in depth as some other modelers are, and as much as I would eventually like to be. So that answers that first question. Then the second question comes from Jason Klein at Klein Race Design, KRD. And he was basically just asking, what are your other passions? What else do you do that you're just as passionate about as you are with your modeling? And really for me, modeling in all forms has always been kind of a passion to me. I haven't participated in all of the things that I really enjoy. A lot of that has to do with expense even. So, like I said, I did model RC aircraft for a long time. I'm a better aircraft builder than I am a flyer, probably. And I was really wanting to get into large scale airplanes. again, that kind of fell back to expenses. And the other thing about the RC hobby is, A, you've got to have a place where you can fly these things. B, the weather has to be decent for you to do that. C, you've got to have a place to store bigger airplanes if you're building more or owning more than one or two, which a lot of guys do. A lot of guys have basically a rolling hangar full of airplanes. And then, the workspace to build those in. So I was doing okay. I wasn't quite getting, again, to the level I wanted to be in that hobby. And then I lost a good job that I had where I had a lot of time off and I had a little better income. So that was kind of the first hobby to go to the wayside because of the expense of it, really. And then I dabbled a little bit in photography. In fact, I've been published a few times in some of the RC modeling magazines. My daughter actually is now a professional wedding photographer up in Alaska where she lives, and she's just knocking it out of the park with some of the stuff she does. So that is her passion. And then, of course, my grandsons, those are also her passion, which is fantastic. And then I got into it a little later in life, so I'd always been a bicyclist. As a kid, I always had a bicycle, went everywhere on a bicycle. As a young adult, I had bicycles, some racing bicycles, mountain bikes. But when I turned 39, a girlfriend of mine for my birthday gave me basically a rider's course. She paid for a rider's course for me for a motorcycle. Because up to that point, I didn't know how to ride a motorcycle. And so I did that, but I also couldn't afford a bike at the time, and I wanted a new bike. I don't have anything against a Harley Davidson. I love Harley Davidson, but a new one is pricey, and I didn't want somebody else's bike for my first bike. I wanted my own bike. So I waited a few years, and in 2013, right before I turned 42, is that right? Yeah, right before I turned 42, I bought a brand new Yamaha V-Star 1300 Tour. Air-cooled V-twin, 1300 cc's. Looks like a Harley. To the uneducated, they would think it was a Harley. I loved that bike. I rode, in fact, for 2.5 years, that was the only vehicle I owned. And I was working at the time over in South Louisiana, and I would work a week at work, then I'd be home for a week. And I was home every other weekend. So that's back when I was still doing my RC hobby as well. So on the Sundays I was home. I was usually out at the RC field. But the bike, yeah, I put almost 67,000 miles on that bike in about 5.5 years' time. And then in 2018, Yamaha came out with it was a newer version of the Venture, but they also did kind of a sister bike to that, which was more of a stripped down bagger version that they called the Eluder. And I bought that new for my birthday that year in April. So I've had it now for 7 years, and I just ticked over 64,000 miles on it. So motorcycling has been kind of a passion for me. I don't really ride as much as I did years back when I had that other job, because I had, like I said, I had a lot more time off than I do now. I really missed that time off. I'm almost making the money I was before, so expenses aren't a huge thing anymore, but yeah, I really missed the time off. But anyway, so that answers those two community questions that have been put out there recently. I'm a little bit late getting to answer both of those, but I hope you enjoy that. A little bit more history, my background, and I will have more videos coming up this week. But until then, peace and love, y'all.